Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. Well, tonight we are talking about the sea of changes that is coming the way of BYU athletics, new AD, revamped football and basketball, completely reinvented basketball program. We are going to get into all of that. But before we do, first, I'm Trevor and this is Adam. And it's been a minute since we've recorded, so we've got a lot to cover. There's a lot of things all coming way of BYU and a lot to hit upon as we look forward to this upcoming season. But before we do, ask that you please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing this regularly. It's Thursday night tonight because things moved around and changed, and we've been trying to make this work for a while, but we're looking to do these live shows on Monday nights. So around this time, so look for these, but it'll be easier if you subscribe and you can catch all of the content, and we'll be up to date talking about the latest of BYU athletics as we go. But Adam, tonight, as I was, telling the family, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do these recordings and told them, with you and everything. And my daughter looks at me and she says, does he know that you're recording these and that that people are watching it on YouTube? I was like, yeah.
What?
He's aware.
People actually watch us?
Well, that I can't attest to, but it definitely is going out there. So you are being recorded, and so
I'll be careful what I say.
Well, you're going to have to be, because aside from all the excitement around BYU athletics right now, as they've continued to really take advantage of the new landscape of NIL, and in terms of recruiting and revamping the program and completely redefining what BYU athletics is, it's all shrouded around by this cloud, by the not charges, by the lawsuit, I guess, that's been brought out towards Jake Retzlaff. And I'm not going to get too much into that because I don't know how all that affects YouTube policy and stuff, but I'm sure by now everyone's well aware of it. And we don't need to get into the details on it anyway. It's obviously put BYU and new AD Brian Santiago, and we'll get into him a little bit in a minute, in a pretty tough situation. Obviously, first of all, the allegations, want to acknowledge the allegations around Retzlaff are extremely serious, and obviously don't want to make light of any of that. And hopefully that, that all gets worked out. And, if there was something inappropriate, if, the allegations are true against him, then I hope that, he faces the full consequences of those actions. But that's the predicament that BYU's in, is because they're looking at this as right now, there's no charges being brought against them. Police have looked into it and didn't bring charges. And it's going to take some time for this to actually make it to court, for any sort of ruling to come forward with it. And you have the honor code aspect of it. So even if they find that no laws were broken, but the honor code was, and then on top of all that, you don't want to run into what happened with the volleyball program with Duke, with the allegations towards somebody making racial slurs and saying those to the opposing team, and then throwing this kid under the bus. And then turns out there's no evidence to support those claims at all. And I'm not saying that's the case here, but you have to be really careful of, also innocent until proven guilty. It's a very tough situation, because if they handle it wrong with Jake Retzlaff, perhaps he comes in with his own lawsuit after the fact. So it's really difficult. I'm sure they've had all sorts of conversations. Everyone's been very quiet, and since the initial announcement came out. And so I'm sure everyone's, working quietly behind the scenes, doing their due diligence. I did hear Jake Hatch on his show say that Retzlaff has been working out with his teammates and with the trainers. And so there is that. Make of that what you will. So it's it's very interesting because there's so much uncertainty, and I'm glad I don't have to be the one involved with making the decision. We'll discuss that once, those decisions are made. But right now, it's just, what does that mean for the program, which feels a little bit flippant in regards of just the severity of the conversation around that. But really, we're here to talk about BYU athletics, and as serious as that is, and as opposed to sports, which is just sports, it will have consequences on this BYU football team. And so, Adam, after having said all that, trying to make sense of all of this, do you really see any way, any realistic path for Jake Retzlaff to still be the quarterback come game one of this season?
Well, and that's a loaded question, and I think it's probably good to acknowledge that we're not diving into the more serious debate on this because you and I are not professionals in that arena. I'm gonna leave this is a really serious topic, and I don't feel qualified to go into the legalities, the implications. I'll start and say it is a lose-lose situation for everybody. It's
Yeah.
bad. Whenever the truth comes out and whatever the truth is, it's an awful situation. Whatever the truth is. There's no scenario here where you don't feel awful for people involved. Um and go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, it is lose lose because even if somehow, I don't think there's ever gonna be the kind of perfect evidence that just completely exonerates anybody. So no matter what the outcome of the trial is, or of BYU's investigation, or whatever, the police investigation, what have you, there's always going to be that shroud of doubt surrounding everybody involved. And like you said,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think anybody comes out of this. And best case scenario is that Jake Retzlaff is innocent and that she's making this up, because in that case, that means nobody was assaulted, and that's good news, right? But it's also terrible news, because if she's making this up, then what is that going to do for the next people that come out with real allegations? And that completely undermines it. So there's really like no scenario where you're like, oh good, like now we can just
Yeah.
move on. There's
Yeah.
no moving on from this.
There's not a conclusion to this where we just say, "Oh, good. Here are the facts." It's going to be bad no matter what. And I think we can talk about the football side of it, but it's important to acknowledge one, the severity of it, and we'll talk about the lighter side simply because I don't have facts, knowledge, qualifications, any of that to really discuss the heavier side of this, except just to say that you really feel for everyone involved, and you hope the right thing is done in the end, um, both from a legal process perspective and from the university proceedings, and that's all, at this point, that's all you can hope for, regardless of the impact on the football team.
Right.
But to your question, whether or not Retzlaff could conceivably be the quarterback, at this point, anything's possible. I would assume that the university would have to feel like there's some pretty Loctite evidence that that they can stand behind their quarterback in this. Um, and to me, when I read the case, that's hard to picture the university getting there. Um, Unless you can go through and there's just hard contradictory evidence to everything that was alleged. And so that's what the great unknown is. And so yes, there is a pathway to that, but as a complete outsider with no knowledge of the actual facts, beyond what's published in in the police report and the civil lawsuit itself, I have no idea. But I think that's the only way that Jake can continue to play football, is if there's just really, really strong, ironclad evidence that refutes the allegations against him, and that's the decision that the university has to make right now. Um, and again, that's, as we touched about, that's why it's a lose-lose situation. I mean, even in that case where Retzlaff is playing, you just feel awful for everyone involved. And if the allegations are true, you feel awful too. So there is a path, but it's just I personally think it's narrow and unlikely.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like at the very least, there's enough smoke around this that feels like at the very least there's honor code issues. So I don't know. I'm not making that claim. I can't say it like you. Obviously, we don't know anything, but it seems like out of all the scenarios, at least something. It seems I don't know. For me, it seems unlikely, and it's not unfortunate. It's not strong enough word, but obviously, for all of this to happen, it's also extremely disappointing to, a young man who had such a great story with the program. Um, and it's been such a feel good story. And now, regardless of the outcome, it's overshadowed by this. And, we made such, I felt like we had such good positive momentum and for what it said about, I think, the school and about Jake and his faith and everything. And so it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's a really ugly situation and unfortunate. Again, so let's go to the lighter side because we can opine on that a little bit more. And obviously we'll discuss the rest as things come out and decisions are being made. But right now we have to assume that there's at least a pretty good chance that at least a fair chance that somebody other than Jake Retzlaff will be starting at quarterback for BYU this upcoming season. Now, out of those options, there are a few other quarterbacks on the roster. At this point, I don't think that they had named an official QB2.
Mhm.
Jake Retzlaff clearly went into spring as QB1, but we have McKay Hillstead and Bourget, Bourget, and then the newbie Bear Bachmeyer. I also saw somebody point out that that not oh shoot, not Gunner, but Romney still has one more year of eligibility. Why am I forgetting his name now?
Yeah.
Shoot. Anyway, so yeah, we could bring him back from where's he at? Adobe or wherever, Qualtrics, something like that.
We're really reaching deep now.
No, but so I've heard, a lot of good things about both Hillstead and Bourget. Obviously, Bachmeyer has a lot of upside to him, but let's quickly talk about the pros and cons of these guys and who we see is who's right now. What's the chatter and who do we think is going to be most likely to start if Retzlaff is not eligible to go, and who we think is going to put BYU in the best chance to win games.
Yeah, the buzz coming out of camp was that Hillstead had just a slight leg up on Bourget, and so it looks like he's got the inside track right now. Um, Hillstead, just looking at his tape from Utah State, the guy's a gamer.
Mhm.
He's got a gutsy mentality, and you have to be. If you're 5'10", a buck 80 soaking wet, you gotta be, you gotta have some serious talent. I think if Hillstead had 2 or 3 more inches on his frame and another 30 pounds, he'd be a 4-star prospect with NFL potential. I think he's got all the talent in the world. And I think you'd probably get through half your schedule in pretty good condition with Hillstead. Um, can he really go up against stringent Big 12 defenses? Can he go up against Utah's defense and find some success? I don't know. No one does. He had some flashes of brilliance, and I think Roderick can hone that and can put together enough of a package to highlight him. My concern is with Hillstead, if you're going to succeed in the Roderick offense, you have to be a mobile quarterback. I think that's been very well established over the past 6 years. You have to be a mobile quarterback. And when you're running around playing D1 college football, P4 college football, and you're 5'10", 180, how many hits is it going to take until you can't go anymore? And so I have a ton of confidence in McKay Hillstead as a talent. And I don't mind if my quarterback's 5'10", right? Well, Russell Wilson can do it, but Russell Wilson's built like a bowling ball. And he can take the hits, and so I worry a lot about the durability of a Hillstead at quarterback. Bourget is the exact opposite. He's the NFL prototype, but from the sound of it, and who knows, he just doesn't have quite the edge on talent, the mobility that Hillstead does, the ability to throw that extra window pass like Hillstead can. And so I would see Hillstead getting the nod coming out, but I think you're going to rely on Bourget by the end of the season. Bear Bachmeyer has the highest upside. That guy is the future at quarterback. And if you had a year to develop, my money would be on him to win the 2026 starting job. He has all the intangibles, and if he can come in and learn the offense, which is tough, the Roderick offense is complex. So he'd have a lot. He'd have to be a quick study on that. But he'd have a shot in 2026. I think there's no way he gets on the field in 2025 unless we're in serious injury trouble. Because you can't come in and learn a Roderick offense in 2 months and run it effectively at the D1 level, making the jump from high school. I just Keaton Slovis could barely do it. Right? I mean, he came in and I think he knew the offense pretty well. He had a full offseason to do it. He had tons of experience at the collegiate level. Bear Bachmeyer is not going to make an impact on the field this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like Bourget has kind of more of the arm, maybe a little bit more accuracy, but Hillstead has, like you said, that gamer mentality, which is a lot of what we see in Retzlaff. The difference is that, from what I've seen, he has more of the big chunk yard play kind of capability, whereas that's kind of what I thought of Retzlaff, but his numbers don't indicate that. Like, BYU just does not pick up big chunks at a time, which is crazy when you think you have, the receivers that they've had. But the good news is that both of them have played D1, started D1 games, and they've played, meaningful football. Now, not obviously at the level that BYU will be going up against.
But that is a huge advantage. It is. I mean, you look at Retzlaff's first few games at the end of 23. These guys have already been through that. Every quarterback's got to go through that sort of jump to the D1 level. And yeah, the P4 level is an even bigger jump. But I think the jump between high school and D1, what Bourget and Hillstead went through, was bigger than the jump from where they're coming at those D1 programs to now P4 Big 12 football. And so I think it's huge that they both have in-game experience, multiple game experience at that level.
Yeah. Now, if the wheels completely fall off, I think that's when you get Bachmeyer in there and start getting him reps. I mean, you look at what they did with Wilson in his freshman year, and I think that paid a lot of dividends down the road. Obviously, Jake going in at the latter half of a couple seasons ago, I think helped him really get a leg up going into the off season and the spring training and everything with the system and getting those reps under his belt. Now, Hillstead, it sounds like he might be a little bit more turnover prone as well. But the good news is that there's a lot of talent around him, and they wouldn't have to do too much. And the fact that he's mobile, that it gives him, more opportunities to extend plays. But I'm with you. It does sound like that's probably where it's leaning. That's most likely where they would go. But I guess everybody has to be ready. You never know, because like you said, slight frame, if he's injured, then it's next man up. Now my question is, because Jake, I think BYU's really at least has been really behind Jake this last season, based on the success that BYU had. But he's still not. Obviously, he's not Zach Wilson, but he's not even Jaron Hall. He still had a lot of those mistakes, and we saw a lot of improvement and thought, okay, if he can even make a fraction of that kind of jump in this offseason, he'll be really, really good. But I mean, it is not like he's realistically going to be in the Heisman conversation. Maybe get a little bit of conversation, because if BYU continues to have, big success, quarterbacks are going to, get a brighter spotlight on him. But he's not, a quarterback without flaws. And so how much of a setback do you think this really takes BYU? I mean, considering both QBs have been with the program for a full season now.
Yeah, and we are in a really good position with QBs relative to where we've been in the past if your starter's not available. So I think it's good to acknowledge that. I do think the best you could hope for from Hillstead or Bourget is a 2024 Retzlaff, right? I mean, I just don't see a possibility unless one of them comes in. It's just like, whoa, Heisman caliber. Hillstead was hiding this all along. And possible, but unlikely. I think the best you can hope for is that they come in and they perform at that level of the 2024 Jake Retzlaff, which would be great. That's not a bad thing. Like you said, he performed well. He struggled at times. The offense was limited to a certain degree. I always thought that for BYU to make the jump, win the Big 12, get to the playoffs, and maybe make some noise in the playoffs, you'd have to have, if you're really going to go make some noise in the playoffs, you would need Retzlaff and LJ Martin to make leaps from very good football players to elite level. And I don't know you can do that with the quarterback without Retzlaff in there. If you've got Hillstead or Bourget, you're not going to get elite level at the quarterback play. If you have LJ Martin make that jump that everybody feels he could, and he is the premier back in the Big 12 now. He takes that Ollie Gordon type role where he's just unstoppable. Well, then BYU's got a path to the Big 12 championship no matter who's playing quarterback, because Bourget and Hillstead are good enough to run some solid play action throws, and you just feed that bell cow 30 carries a game to LJ Martin, and you're running 200 yards a game on people, and all you got to do is throw for 250 yards on play action. Either of those guys could do that. But I'll tell you, if LJ Martin continues to be injured and we can't lean on the O-line like we need to, that's where I think you would see either of them struggle. I don't think either of them could really make that leap, because one of the things that Roderick pointed out was that Retzlaff has been so good at pre-snap reads and getting us out of trouble, and it's the things that we don't see that made the BYU offense as effective as it was last year. I don't think you're going to get that out of Hillstead and Bourget. They don't have that. They're not going to bring that in. So they don't have that element to provide yet. So there's a lot that remains to be seen, but I think it definitely lowers your ceiling. I think BYU had elite opportunity, top 10 potential if Retzlaff and Martin make that leap on offense, because I think your defense is going to get better. We can talk through that a little bit, but that's where I feel like you really hit a ceiling, and it all falls on LJ Martin's shoulders now, in my opinion. If you're going to be that Big 12 championship team, LJ Martin's got to carry you there.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, obviously, I think they're going to hit the ground more. At least they should, considering you'd have a fresh face at quarterback who's unseasoned, and having someone like Martin, but not just him, but there's some good depth behind him, even with the attrition that BYU saw.
Yeah, Sione Moa looks great.
And so that really allows you to, like you said, run the ball a lot on teams this year. And so we might see a little bit of a different look. But as we found last year, like BYU kept finding different ways to win. And I don't care, how BYU wins. I just want to see them win. And if that's the recipe, great. So like you said, they have a lot of pieces around them. You have the receivers, you have running backs, you got your new tight end, but it really comes down to the O-line. Are they going to be able to hold up for this kind of quarterback and allow whoever it is back there to do what they need to? And are they going to gel? I mean, if Hillstead's always escaping the pocket and twitchy and wants to run with it, are they going to be able to, have that chemistry, know where he is and protect him, and or how to help him out there? So we will see. There's a lot to discuss, and obviously we'll see what BYU does there. But I think along with the O-line, I think the other aspect of this is, as you just mentioned, is the defense, but also special teams, because we know that Jay Hill is going to have his defense ready to play. And even with some of the guys that we left, we feel like everyone feels very bullish on this defense, that it's going to be able to take a step forward, even from what they did last year. And then special teams, I know we lost Keelan Marion. We still have Will Farron, but Keelan Marion, like, obviously very talented. I am very bummed that he's gone, but I think a lot of what the success on special teams came to the coaching and the plans there, the scheming there. And that goes to Kelly Papinga, and he is still there. And so I think we have other guys that are speedy. Obviously, it sucks to lose a guy who is kind of a fan favorite and we know can do it, and is a All-American at that position. But I think that BYU could continue to have success in that area. But obviously, there was also a little bit of luck that went into some of those. Obviously, with the one against K-State, with that was the punt return. That wasn't Keelan Marion, but and so some of that's going to change. So I'm just saying BYU has other avenues for winning. So if it is really, like they said, complementary football, you have the defense ball out, and then you're able to hold on to the ball and just grind it out and hold on to and bring down the clock a lot, like A-Rod likes to do. Maybe that plays to BYU's favor this year with the guys and the personnel that they have. So yeah, I don't think all is lost, but I do think, like you said, now I feel like the ceiling may not be quite as high. Another thing that BYU does have going for them is that their schedule is considered not very strong.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know how much I buy into that. Last year we were supposed to face the gauntlet. I mean, Arizona at the end of 2023 looked like a juggernaut, lost their head coach, couldn't play last year. I mean, we had so many teams. Utah was supposed to be a powerhouse. They struggled all year, couldn't get any offense going. I mean, we hit team after team after team who was it was supposed to be a brutal schedule, and last year it actually shaped out to be not too bad. I mean, K-State was good. I don't know that they were elite like they were supposed to be. So I don't know that I buy into the chatter around our light schedule this year. I think it looks that way, and I think it looks favorable. I think I like the teams we have at home. The Iowa State and Texas Tech road games are brutal. That's clearly the toughest stretch to go. Utah, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and the latter two being on the road is just awful scheduling for us. So I don't love that narrative. I think we're going to have some really tough spots. Our non-conference slate is great. It's like a preseason. You got kind of a P4 team that's struggling with Stanford. That's kind of the P4 you want at home as you're tuning up your team. The ECU game on the road is going to be challenging because you're traveling on the East Coast, but ECU is not a juggernaut, and so it really kind of tunes you up well to get into those conference games. And so in that sense, it's favorable. But the back half of that schedule is deceptively difficult.
Yeah, and we'll have other videos where we go a little bit more into the schedule. But I'm with you. Even when we were still working under the assumption that Jake Retzlaff was going to be the quarterback, that stretch right there with Iowa State, Texas Tech, Utah, I was already, kind of penciling in at least a couple losses right there. And I just assumed, however, that still should be enough if you take care of business to play for the Big 12 title, depending on how things play out. So BYU certainly still going to be in the mix, but yeah, their ceiling in terms of what they could do on kind of a national level outside of the Big 12 seems a little bit more stunted at this point. So that's all right. Otherwise, recruiting has been crazy.
Oh my, it's been amazing.
While we're on football, I was going to do this later, but if you want to touch upon that real quick, we're kind of going to do rapid fire as we go through all the topics we've missed over the last few weeks. We'll do other fuller videos focusing more in on recruiting for both this season and upcoming classes. But what's been your read on it so far? Kalani stock has been active.
It is incredible, and we won't get into the 2026 class except to say that it's historic, and you really hope that translates into great play on the field. But amazing, never had a class like that. So that's been fun to see. It just feels like 4-star after 4-star after 4-star is coming in to the program. I think the impact for this year are the transfers. I think they've been great with the transfer portal. BYU gets tons of criticism every year. Oh, they didn't bring in because they brought in all those transfers for the 23 season, and we didn't gel, didn't go so well. And BYU puts a lot of stock in retaining their players, and they did a good job at that. But they recruit at key positions, and what they did at D-line is incredible. Tanavasa and Kirkland. You got two 315-pound bruisers there with P4 starting experience. I mean, those two. When I saw Kirkland signed to go next to Tanavasa, I was over the top on that because that finally cements that defense. You got a great secondary. I know the corners are unproven, but Guilford will have those guys ready to play. I'm not too concerned about that. Your safeties are experienced and deep. Your linebackers are amazing. Even though you lose Taggart, you knew Acera was chomping at the bit to be that middle linebacker, and I'm excited to see him play full healthy for a whole season. If he can stay healthy, he's got to stay healthy. But man, he's good. That defense is ferocious. And then they brought in Akana on to be the edge, and I hope he does well. He seems like the player we need. I talked about this before, but Batty, I know he was an impact player, but a lot of games I just thought, where is Batty? Where's the sacks? Where's the disruption in the backfield? And I think teams could just put 2 or 3 guys on him because you didn't have the other manpower to really manhandle an offensive line. Well, now they've got that with their interior, and it could be really exciting to see what Akana, Paua, and others can do. What I want to see in fall camp for these transfers and these newer guys to come in, Asiata and others to come in and take over. I think Lutui's coming back. Schoonover's been there a while, and I want to see these young guys beat out the vets because they're so good and so overpowering and so athletic, because I feel like the vets have been there a long time and haven't really made that impact yet. So that's where I think BYU made the biggest splash in their transfers. They brought in Carson Ryan, who is probably one of the best tight ends we've had in the program for a while, and he will not be an impact transfer at all because we don't use our tight ends. So don't every year we go through this tight end thing. We're like, oh, this is going to be amazing with Rex or whoever, right? Whoever's in there at tight end, and then they're like silent through most of the year. Since 2020, we have not had an impactful tight end. So I don't care who you bring in. Carson Ryan's going to be a great sixth blocker on the field because that's how we use our tight ends. And he'll catch a couple passes here and there. He'll sneak in for a TD because nobody expects him to catch a ball because he's always blocking. So I don't think Carson Ryan's going to be a huge impact player, but he's a great blocker, and we need that. But he's probably one of the best we've had in the program. We just don't use our tight ends, and until I see it on the field, I will never believe the preseason chatter that we're actually going to use a tight end.
Hot take there. No, I think that's a pretty common take. So yeah, I think that sums it up. And like you said, I really like what's going on with the defense, what Jay Hill's doing, and many of the other offensive pieces too. We were able to fill holes and keep the team deep in a lot of positions. So, all right, so let's move on because there's a lot of other things going on. We talked a lot about football. Again, we have a lot of topics that we're trying to get through as we do this. But before we move on, just ask that. Well, one, we're doing these live shows so people can join in on the comments too. So please be sure to let us know who you'd like to see at quarterback this season if Jake Retzlaff is not in with the program. Also, what do you think BYU's ceiling is, without him, and what BYU can really kind of hope to accomplish this next season? But also be sure to like the video and subscribe. Look for us. We will be doing these live videos on Mondays. So we love it when people come in and join the chat with us and are part of the conversation. That's why we do this, is to get everyone involved, not just to sit here quietly, as my daughter thinks, in our room doing a private Skype session that we are recording, and everyone is aware that Adam is aware that this is being recorded and put on YouTube. So, all right. So along with a lot going on with football, there's also basketball. But before we get to that, I want to talk about BYU's latest addition, which is Brian Santiago. Actually, he's not. They're getting new players every day, new signings and other things. But one of the latest additions in Brian Santiago, who's obviously been with the program, but he will be replacing Tom Holmoe as the athletic director. He's been his right-hand man. He's been part of the program for a very long time, and I think a key piece in helping Tom Holmoe build the program into what it is today. Having said that, there's still a lot of controversy around him, a lot of BYU fans that have gripes with him for one reason or another, that say that, and perhaps his demeanor, things he said, the way he's acted throughout the past. I don't know all of them. I didn't go to the message boards or read things, but suffice it to say, some people are just not happy with him. We're so used to Tom Holmoe and just kind of this super personable guy that just everybody loves. But also, Brian Santiago was really endorsed by Tom Holmoe, not officially, but basically endorsed by Tom Holmoe, and they've worked together for a lot of years. So, Adam, what's your read on bringing Brian Santiago into the program?
I don't know that this will be a popular read or not, but we are in the off season and we need headlines. Right before BYU got a lot of headlines recently. This was before that, and so people are scrambling for headlines. It's a bit of a shrug to me for a couple reasons. One, Tom Holmoe was a transcendent athletic director because of what he was asked to do. We had to go independent with your rival going to a P5 program. You had to go independent, and then to bring us out of independence into P4 status is the mark the BYU's been working for 50 years, and he was instrumental in bringing it about. You think it probably doesn't happen without Tom Holmoe. He was amazing. This next athletic director, we're not asking them to do that. We're asking them to navigate some difficult waters in P4, but that's really going to be the one athletic director is not going to have a huge impact on that like Tom Holmoe would in Independence. That's more on a Big 12 commissioner. You're part of a conference now. If you're gunning somehow to get into the Big 10 or SEC, that's different, but BYU is not in a position to do that. You're there to make the right hires for head coach, and right now football and basketball don't seem to be getting a new head coach for the next 5-6 years. Fingers crossed that that's the case. So I'm not making as big a deal of it as the media is, and I'm not saying they're just looking for headlines. Obviously, BYU fans feel passionately about this. To me, you could have gone with 5 or 6 really good candidates, and because of what we're asking that AD to do right now, you're not going to get 2 varied results. It's possible for an AD to grab the program and drive the ship into the ground. It is. I think that's unlikely with the support we've got around, with the momentum we've got going. We're not asking the AD to do a lot. And so it could be Brian Santiago. It could be a few other candidates. It's just not hitting my radar right now. It's great. If something blows up, maybe I was totally wrong. But I just don't. I think you got a lot of really qualified people to do it, and we're not asking them to do what Holmoe had to do, which was nothing short of miraculous.
You made a really good point. Tom Holmoe was a transcendent AD, and he was the right guy at the right time for a very long period of BYU. It took us through a lot of different iterations of BYU in terms of conference independence and everything that BYU had to go through. You're absolutely right. And guess who's there working with him? Brian Santiago. Now, he may or may not be able to do things as well as Tom Holmoe, but you're right. He's going to face different challenges. I would push back a little bit. You're right. He's not going to face those same challenges. However, the landscape of college football is changing by the day, and we may not even be able to fully grasp the changes that are coming and how they're going to impact BYU. So he better be ready to figure out how to navigate that. However, it will be a very different situation than what they've seen so far. But also, I'm with you. I just don't care. Like, he doesn't have to be the nicest guy. Maybe he's really competitive. Maybe he only likes the rich people or whatever, the complaints are about it. But guess what? He saw Tom Holmoe work, and he knows what's going on with the program and how it got to where it's at. And you're right. BYU is at the cusp, or just kind of the beginning of this new era of BYU athletics, especially with NIL and the way that BYU's been able to capitalize on this and just completely revamp its the programs. I mean, and not just football and basketball we'll get to in a second, but like, look at what they're doing across other sports, not baseball, but the other sports that just continue to have so much success, especially in like cross country and track and field and
women's volleyball, men's volleyball.
They just have not. And you look at his track record at hiring coaches. I mean, there are some misses, but there are so many hits, and they are just really, really good coaches. And from what I understand, that Brian Santiago was a key piece in helping bring Kevin Young to BYU. And so, again, if he's already got the ear of those major donors and he's with those people, like, that's really who's going to help this program continue on this trajectory, is having those big time donors involved and engaged with the program and getting the right coaches. I think that's the biggest thing he can do. And if that's something he can maintain, then for me, I think great. Maybe it doesn't have to be the most likable guy. Guess what? I've only ever saw Tom Holmoe once. I was at the ECU game in 2017. We were actually all complaining about the program, then turned around and saw him. He was a few rows behind me. This was at halftime, and thought, he's just in the stands talking to people. And I was like, I hope he didn't hear me. And then I was like, well, actually, I kind of hope he did. So, but
I'm sure he took your advice to heart, Trevor.
Yeah, I had some really, really good thoughts that he hadn't considered previously, like, winning more games. Actually, it was my idea. I said, you need to fire Ty Detmer. I know he won, no, I didn't say that at the time. But Anyway, yeah, so I'm with you. I just don't care. I think if he can come in and do, keep the ship afloat and just keep moving forward on the path that they're on, great. Uh, Guess what? Maybe he's a jerk to a lot of people or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. It's fine. We're not going to have another Tom Homo, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well said.
All right. But like we said, he was instrumental in helping bring in Kevin Young, and Kevin Young is obviously instrumental in completely redefining BYU basketball and what the ceiling is for this program, what the expectations are for this program. And obviously, it kind of all starts, at least this upcoming season, by bringing in AJ DeBonsa, but it really started this last season by recruiting their own guys, keeping guys, and bringing in new talent, and then doing it again this season. And so I'm gonna. Well, what do you make of it? Because last time we did a video, they were still rounding out the roster. There were still a few more spots that they've since filled. How do you think BYU's done as a whole putting this team together?
We'll see what the end product is on the floor, but preseason, nothing short of remarkable. I mean, you didn't know if Kevin Young could one up last year's recruitment production and production on the floor, but my goodness, it's not just AJ DeBonsa that was amazing. Now you got Rob Wright, Kennard Davis. I'm trying to think of the rest.
You
of
got
them. You got
Tyler
some of
Russ and Nate Pickens,
Russ.
Diamande.
Pickens was a big one. You needed that backup point guard to come out behind Wright. I mean, there's just so many. You're looking at this, and Xavion Staten, who is high 4-star prospect, NBA bound, may not see much of the floor. That is, and he comes in. I'm sure, knowing he's gonna have to earn that. Just that fact tells you so how different this program is. From where it's been historically. And so I could not, I've never been this excited for a basketball season. If BYU football was struggling, to say I'd be more excited about a basketball than football is crazy. Because I just, BYU is a football school. I'm a big football fan. I follow their basketball team, but I don't consider them must see TV every second of every game. But now I'm going to watch him play North Carolina, Wisconsin, UConn, Clemson, Villanova. I mean, the list goes on and on. That alone says what kind of roster they have. Is that all those blue bloods are like, yeah, BYU, let's do this. Let's go out of our way to schedule a non-conference game, to make sure we get that spotlight on us. That's how bright the spotlight is shining from BYU. Is that blue blood programs are like, yeah, let's do this. Let's set this up in New York and Boston and the Delta Center, wherever else. And so I can't wait to see the product on the floor. It may disappoint. It's just hard to see that because everything Kevin Young has done has exceeded expectations, and now he sent him through the roof. And people are like, "Oh, number 3 team in the country," and you just want to be like, "Well, it's not Final Four or bust," but I'll tell you, that's what the fans are going to feel like once the season tips off. It's Final Four or bust for this team.
Yeah, I'm with you. It is just short of, incredible, miraculous of what Kevin Young has been able to do, especially in such a short time. It's not like, 5 years into the program and now he's doing this. I mean, this was instantaneous. I mean, I think we had just started, it was at the beginning of the last season and they'd already locked in AJ DeBonsa, which is crazy. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see the squad. Obviously you have the Rob Wrights and stuff, but the way they filled out the rest of this bench, some of these other guys, I mean, yeah, they're coming up from smaller programs, from programs that played BYU, and they had great games against BYU. I don't know if that's always the best way to do it, if that's what they're looking at. One big game, but these are guys that I think all fill roles and they fit in nicely with what BYU wants to do. There was a lot of talk about potentially bringing Darian Williams, and I don't know how much truth there was to that, or how close that ever was to happening. And that would have been awesome. It would have been fantastic. But honestly, then you start looking at, okay, is this going to be like a Kentucky type situation where they just bring in all these big names, but then never really produce? There's only one ball, not enough shots to go around for everybody, and maybe they wouldn't gel. Whereas this looks like a team that has an identity and knows what it is they want to accomplish. And so I'm pretty excited about that.
It's interesting to me to see, Kennard Davis come in or Pickens come in, knowing who's here, knowing you got Wright at point guard, you got DeBonsa and Richie Saunders, who, I mean, that is a lethal trio, arguably the best trio in the country for offensive production. And so that's going to be your core right there for offensive production. And still you get someone coming, you got these guys coming in, Mraz, who's going to come in and say, yeah, I'll pick up the extra shots. So much attention is going to be paid to them. You're going to get the open looks, but you're not going to drop 17 a game. If you're in those role playing positions, and they're still coming in, knowing that wanted to be part of the team. And so that's where I really feel like Kevin Young has flexed his recruiting muscles. You get someone like DeBonsa who's going to be your go-to guy. But can you build around that? That's what made Duke so good this year, in what was almost a championship level team. That's where BYU comes in and says we're not just a one-trick pony. We got a ton of guys we can throw at you. That doesn't even include people like Kozlowski or I can't remember a guy from the African NBA development league that joined us. Anyway, I've heard great things about him. We don't even know his name yet, right? Because he hasn't seen the floor. But you've got guys like that who are developing and who are going to, you hope, contribute this year, but really be highly productive in future years. So it feels like he's built such a secure, deep program, where you got 11 or 12 guys who can compete at the highest level.
Kadeem Mboop, I don't know how to pronounce it. I always go and listen to them say their own name that they have on their roster if you go to the BYU's official site, so that way I can hear it right from the player. But his hasn't even been recorded or added onto the website yet. So yeah, I always forget that one. But
the buzz around campus, he's been incredible in his progress already.
Yeah, which is exciting, very exciting. And he's a guy that has eligibility. And that's something that I'm looking for, because a lot of these guys coming in, they have a little bit of eligibility. And so the idea is that you're looking at, these are guys that are going to, obviously you're going to lose next year, Richie Saunders, well, obviously AJ DeBonsa, but Richie Saunders, Keba Keita, a lot of other guys, and that these guys are going to be there to be kind of the senior statesman, so to speak, to kind of hold the whole thing together and lead the next iteration of the team. And so, you hope that these are guys that are here, that are bought in and want to be here and really build on something. But speaking of, you already talked about this, but the scheduling is just incredible. And I was really disappointed because this last year just did not work out due to other things for me to make it to any of the games. BYU did play on the East Coast, and my schedule, I was always in the wrong place at the wrong time. And they'd spent the last 2 seasons, they've traveled east to play at West Virginia and UCF. And at least last year at Cincy, I can't remember the year prior. And so I was like, it seems very unlikely, especially with eliminating 2 of the conference games this year, that's even fewer opportunities that BYU is going to have to come east. And so I was really banking on this, on their out of conference scheduling. And boy, they've really delivered so far, and they've got some marquee venues and some great matchups that I'll have to go. I missed last year, which is really sad because I really loved last year's team, and there's just something about them. But having AJ DeBonsa, I can't not see AJ DeBonsa at BYU. I have to make it to at least one of these games. But at the very least, we'll be watching, and so will America. And it's exciting to see BYU get that kind of attention. And the thought is that Kevin Young needs to, and we'll talk about this in future videos too, but is to continue to build on this, because if you do, you can kind of shift the national perspective on your team and what this program is, as opposed to being, oh yeah, they just had AJ DeBonza. Like, you think back to other programs like LSU having what's his bucket for a year? What's his face from Australia? He washed out anyway.
Yep.
Or Washington with the other guy that washed out at Philadelphia.
Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons, yeah, LSU. Man, I used to be so into the NBA, and I have not paid attention in a few years, and it's all like left my brain. Anyway, but yeah, you see, those were kind of flash in the pan. And so you want to be something more than that. You want to have a program that continues to build on it. And then you can come to a conversation with other schools that have kind of jumped in there with top tier programs. And I mean, obviously Gonzaga's done it, but they've done it for a long period of time, very sustained period of time. And so, you want to be able to, and you're not a mid-major anymore. You're coming from a power level. And so it is different, but so it's really exciting to see what they can do. And it's crazy to think that it's summer and we're almost in June, and here I am counting down the days, not till football, but until basketball season. It's wild. Obviously I'm excited for football, but it's just, I'm so excited to see this team play and to see Kevin Young cook.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I do want to point out on here, I did have to add some word marks on here. I saw someone shared that. I shared it on Twitter, and then somebody else shared it and didn't give me any credit. Not that I need credit, but I'm happy to have people come join the show and the conversation here. So anyway, this is my projected, it may be off, starting five. And then the rest of these guys, again, Kevin Young says he has positionless basketball. I still kind of have these more or less in a kind of a traditional 2-3-4. I don't know if Kennard is really a 4. I'm guessing that that they won't necessarily want DeBonza banging down low, guarding bigger guys. Yeah. But I also think that AJ DeBonza is good at defense, and he's the kind of guy that doesn't want to shy away from that. But also, he's building his draft stock and saying, hey, I'm not just a scorer. Like, I think he'll want to get out there, mix it up, and play defense. I just don't know if they'll have him going down low to bang bodies. They probably won't have him on the top offensive player on the other team, but I think he'll definitely pick up on defense some solid assignments there. And then the rest of these guys, there's so much to see, or so much to decide, because like you said, Staten may not even see the floor. It really may be these guys. I do think we'll see more of Kozlowski this year. Mm-hmm. I do think he's someone they hope to kind of build around with the program going forward. I think Russ is there to be kind of, you think about the guys we're losing. I think of, Diamande or maybe Kennard, somebody trying to replace on the defensive side. Then you've got, the shooting, we're losing, the shot doctor, so to speak. You think of these roles that we have to fill. Obviously, there's not a Foose. They didn't go get a back to the basket kind of guy. I don't think that's the kind of big man that Kevin Young is looking for. Although I do love that they were able to use him so effectively. But so there's a lot to figure out here still. But you're right. I do think Pickens is going to be kind of the backup point guard. Now you have a lot of guys, Richie Saunders and Devonta, some of these others that'll, I think, bring up the ball plenty, but he's more of a combo guard, not a true point guard. So I think you just have a lot of ball handlers, a lot of kind of, the NBA philosophy, the positionless basketball. And so I think we're going to see a lot of variations there. And we know that Kevin Young will be happy to play with his lineups, mix it up, and really see what sticks and try a lot of different things throughout the game and make switches. We might see a game where BYU's stalled out and he might throw in a lineup we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And
throw
him out there. Maybe it'll work.
He made so many changes. I love that watching the games is how quickly he would change. If you went to the bench, you could be back in 30 seconds or in 2 minutes. I mean, you were always on your toes. and it surprised me that it was so effective. I think the X factor in this is actually Boscovich. He 6'10". I think he could play that big man defense at times if needed. I think that will determine how much Staten sees the floor, how he develops really as an offensive presence. Obviously, he can be a shot blocker, but can he pick up the rest of the complex defensive structure for college ball and things like that? But if Boscovich makes that jump, he talked at the end of last year of he earned some more playing time, came up with some clutch shots in West Virginia and some other games. But he's got to get better at 3-point shooting because that's really going to be his role on offense is catching lobs and shooting threes. And then can he be an elite defender with his size? If he takes that jump and can play great as a big man, I think you're going to need him because there's times when your starting big man is going to get into trouble or one of your wings, and he knows the system. He's played there before. Kevin Young's got a lot of confidence in him because of last year, but he's really got to make that jump. If he can do that, then I think you got a guy whose experience is a little bit more mature and coming in and playing that sixth man role in so many different areas, whether it's wing or big.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. He's to settle down and get a little more consistent, but he definitely has the potential there. And he played in pros. He in Europe. He played against grown men. He certainly has the capability of doing it. And I think, I hopefully during this offseason they continue to work with him and he continues to grow into that. But it'll be very interesting. But no matter what, like, I'm very excited for this team and for this roster, see how it continues to shake out. And in terms of who will be playing, who will be contributing, and really most of that we won't know until the season starts. And I'm excited to see it. I just can't wait. Even like you said, even the preseason, like even just a game against UNC. I mean, at this point, I don't really care who they're playing. Obviously, I want those big matchups, but I just want to watch this team ball out, and I'm really excited for it. So it's just so good. I mean, obviously, aside from the situation we talked about at the top of the video with Retzlaff, aside from that, like, it is such a good time to be a Cougar with the program doing so many good things across so many sports, and just seeing the success and BYU just competing in the Big 12. And I just love the Big 12, being a member of it, and the other schools, and having those new rivalries, and seeing that level of competition, and seeing BYU programs rise to that level. So really exciting. It's I don't know. I mean, did we miss anything? I mean, there's so much that's happened going on. We have all summer to go through it, but is there anything we did not talk about that we've missed over the last few weeks?
No, I think we'll get more into the recruiting and what that says about BYU, because the number of 4 stars they brought into that football program has been astounding, along with the level of athlete they brought into BYU, and I do think it signals a shift for the program. And so if you're looking at it from a macro perspective, it's astounding, and you hope this bleeds over to other sports, softball, baseball, and you really see it elevate across the athletic department. But it is astounding. I don't pay a ton of attention to recruiting news on the football side. I find myself a little bit more now because there's splashier names, but it takes so long with missions and everything else for these guys to really come to fruition, and then a lot of the 4 stars just don't work out. But to me, it says something, the way we're flipping guys from Oregon, the way we're flipping guys from Stanford or elsewhere, and they want to come play for the Cougs. It's heady times. I will say this, especially in modern day college football, you were only as good as your last season. BYU seeing all this because of a 10+ win season. If you stumble and you go 8-5, or you go 5-7, or whatever it is, you'll see this exodus out of the program just as quickly as we've seen it come to the program. Guys want to win. And so it's dangerous times in college football like that. It's what have you done for me lately? And I think you have one bad season and you start to lose people. But on the flip side, you start to gain momentum like this, and you start winning. It builds on itself. You stack wins, which is everybody's favorite term in BYU athletics. But that's what BYU's been doing. And so I don't know that it's worthwhile going into the individual recruits. I know for some people they just love doing that. That's not necessarily my cup of tea, but looking at a top 25 recruiting class for 2026, that's a statement. That's a statement about where the program's at. And really what BYU's done in the past is take these, 60th ranked recruiting classes and put together top 25 teams. What are you going to do with the top 25 recruiting class year over year? That's intriguing. That's exciting.
Yeah. And in June, a number of those young men will be visiting all together, and that is going to be quite a weekend. And hopefully they're able to lock down some guys and really build a strong foundation. But like you said, it's so fickle anymore. Like guys can just go just like that, even after a great season, or even after just part of the off season, and then they're gone again already. And I mean, we even have someone who's committing to the program that you were talking about flipping. It was Oregon, then to BYU, or Oregon, now back to BYU. Who's to say he doesn't end up at Oregon again or somewhere else?
I know, and I mean, look at Utah. Utah's had some great recruiting classes. They have a horrible year last year, and that program just everybody bolted. And now we were the beneficiary of that, so that's great. But man, I think it just shows you that that's a program that has a stable head coach, has been there forever. And you'd think would be able to maintain recruits after a bad season, but boy, especially on the defensive side of the ball, people bolted. And now you could say BYU has a stronger culture than that, right? They survived their 5-7 season without losing too many people. But I'll tell you, it is a what have you done for me lately culture in college football and in college basketball. And so you really got to string together the success, which is why I think 2024 was the most pivotal year yet in BYU football, because now you're seeing the results of that one season. Even though we don't make the playoffs, people are saying something's happening at BYU, and they're jumping on the bandwagon. It's cool to watch.
Well, to tie it full circle, that puts even more weight on this season and the decision with Retzlaff and the outcome from that, and who starts at quarterback. It really is going to go, impact not just this season, which BYU was set up, it seems like, to, even better than last season, to have new levels of success, or at least levels of success BYU hasn't had in a long time. We won a national championship. Not all programs can say that in the state of Utah. Well, really none others in B12. So, that is the pinnacle. But just at this level at the Power Four, and play this many Power Four teams, and at this caliber of conference and competition week in and week out, and to be on that national level. Like I think BYU was set up to be a top 15 team going into next season. Now I think that probably takes a hit somewhat, still will be top 25. We'll just see what they can do throughout the rest of the season. And the margin for error is just so much slimmer. And it feels like they can't, those 50-50 games that ended up going BYU's way last year, seems like eventually the law of averages is going to hit BYU and they'll lose more of those, which they did by the end of the season. They lost a couple because of, those 50-50 things didn't quite go their way. But
and you can't leave it to 50-50 anymore. That's got to be the difference in the 2025 football team. And you can do that now with this defense. But you look at the 50-50 games like Kansas, that was not the defense. The defense slowed down a freight train offense, and our offense just petered out against a not stellar defense. And so you can't have, if you're really going to be special, the offense has got to click consistently. And so the little things, converting on third down, not having those big lapses where you can't get a first down for a while, and just there was just a feeling sometimes to the offense where you're like, man, I know they're going to go 3 and out here. It just it would, you can't have that. You don't have to have an overpowering offense. You don't got to score 50 a game like 2001. You just need to be consistent. Convert on third downs, keep the ball away from the other team, and I think BYU can do that if your running backs are good enough, and if your quarterback's smart with the ball, no matter who's back there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but like you said, that's a big season. One that BYU set up to have a lot of success, but not just for this season, but to really build on going forward. And it really is a season of change across the board for BYU. Super excited for it. We've got all summer to think about it, dream about it, and we'll be covering all the offseason news and projections and look ahead to this next season. We'll be doing these live videos. This is coming out on Thursday, but we'll be looking to do these Monday nights. So watch for these. And then, of course, like and subscribe so then you can catch those when we're coming live, but also watch the recordings if you miss it. Please join us, join the comments. We love all of it, all the conversation. Appreciate you watching. Adam, thanks as always. And go Cougs.
Go Cougs.